Alright, next question. I find myself eating a lot more protein than I do carbs. I still hit my calorie intake goals for the day. Does this affect gains when bulking? As long as you're getting proper glycogen, it should be fine, because as I've covered over and over, surplus protein turns into glycogen, but only a certain percentage of your protein can do that, only around 40%. So if you're consuming so much protein versus carbs that you're not able to replenish muscle glycogen quite as effectively, it could hurt your gains in theory. But if you're getting enough of a combination of carbs and protein and you're just really heavy on the protein versus the carbs, it should be fine. The only other thing I would note is that the thermic effect, let's say you're eating 200 extra grams of protein instead of 200 grams of carbs, that's going to change your net caloric intake by a couple hundred calories. So if you were to change that over, you need to realize you might have to lower your caloric intake slightly to have the same maintenance. So just be aware of that thermic effect from eating a very large amount of protein. And if it starts to really become a problem with your satiation due to the filling and satiating nature of protein, it could also become a problem for you. But barring those two issues, it's perfectly fine and it should not hinder your gains in any way, as long as those other things that I mentioned are taken into account. Alright, last question. How would you go about addressing a warped self-image? Have you struggled with it, or were you always confident that you could transform your body at any point given the time? It's kind of an interesting question, because very obviously for me, I'm confident enough to flex my biceps on a camera every single day for an international audience, knowing that I have terrible biceps and knowing that I've torn one of my biceps completely off the bone, that they are by far my worst muscle group. And I do so without really giving a fuck. And it's the same thing. I'm getting up here on camera, bulking in the off season as a power lifter with a lot of bodybuilders and stuff in my audience, when we live in a society where people are very critical. And so obviously for me, if I wasn't confident about that, or if I was really concerned about what other people thought of my physique, I'd be in tears every day reading some of the comments. But I've learned that I just really don't care. So that's my first bit of advice to people. If you're very sensitive about these things, do not put yourself out there on the internet, because people will rip you apart. So that's a tip right there. Be very careful of that. Next up, I would say what you really need to look at is assess, okay, it's one thing to have something that you know you can fix, and it's another thing to be upset over things that you're not capable of changing. And what you have to learn to do is just distance yourself from the things that you can't change. Now, as far as body fat, yeah, for example, for me, I know how to get ripped. It's not a problem for me, but I'm bulking for my powerlifting right now. And actually, I'm about to start leaning out here real shortly, because I need to start recompositioning, because I'm going to have to make sure that I make weight next year, because I don't want to be competing in the 110 kilo. But if it's something like body fat, just remember for these things is that ask, are you just holding extra body fat because you don't want to cut, and it's within your power, and it's something that you can change. So if it upsets you and it's something you can change it, change it. But if you have a reason you can't be lean, you're bulking because you know you need to gain more size or strength, or bodybuilding, or for powerlifting, or just for your long-term image, then you have to learn to just set those things on the back burner and not really care, and realize that they are irrelevant. And a lot of this isn't about self-image of how we feel about ourselves. It is self-image about how we feel about how other people are going to feel about us. The best advice I can give there is that you have to just distance yourself from what other people think. And it's really interesting that we live in a society where most people are very unfit, and the majority are growing more and more unfit, yet we have this kind of elitist subculture that is overly critical of all the flaws in everybody's physique. And so for people who start to become worried about those things, and who start to really care about their physiques, particularly with the internet and the way that people are today, about being overly elitist about it, if anyone doesn't have an absolute perfect physique, that they look like shit, and that people are going to mock them because they don't have perfect rear delts to front delts, or they don't maintain a veiny 8-pack year round. The thing to remember is that a lot of these standards that people set and that they're going to mock you for, and the things that you feel bad about, 99.99% of people who work out seriously would fail these sort of standards that people set forward. So my advice would be to step back and be a realist and not worry about all of these just ridiculous standards that people have. If you're not a competitive bodybuilder at a serious level, worrying about having a perfect physique instead of just having a nice physique or a good physique is just absolutely ridiculous. And my advice is to just step back and distance yourself from that. And if it's really a serious problem for you, I would recommend even stepping away from the online and internet fitness world for a little while till you can work on your own self-esteem, because they're always going to project an unrealistic standard onto you. So if you're having self-esteem issues, don't throw yourself into an environment that's going to make it worse until you have time to build up your self-esteem and possibly even get your physique and body closer to where you want it, so that you won't feel as judged by these people. And it also just helps if you just adopt the mentality of not giving a fuck what anybody else thinks. But that can be hard to do when you're younger. When you get to be my age, that gets to be really, really easy to do, because as you get older, you just really don't care what other people think. But when you're younger, particularly close to your teens, we as a species do not always have that ability to distance ourselves from that, because we're very attached to what our peers think. So change your social circle a bit would be my advice, and whether it's your real life social circle or your internet social circle, so that you can try to build yourself back up a little bit more in terms of your own self-image. So I hope that made sense, because I rambled quite a bit. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you next time.